Have you ever wondered why the period between 500 to 1500 AD in Europe is referred to as the Dark Ages? 1,000 years of human history shrouded in mystery, filled with tales of struggle, survival, and the relentless human spirit. This epoch, spanning from the collapse of the Roman Empire to the dawn of the Renaissance, covers a vast geographical expanse, from the British Isles to the Byzantine Empire. Join us as we dive deep into the mysteries of the Dark Ages. Imagine a world after the fall of the Roman Empire, a time of chaos and uncertainty. A world where the once grandeur of Rome, with its towering structures and vast territories, was reduced to mere ruins and fragmented provinces. This was the world that emerged following the collapse of one of the history's most influential empires. The Roman Empire, an entity that had mastered the art of administration, law, and warfare, succumbed to a series of challenges in the 5th century. These challenges, from internal conflict to invasions by barbarian tribes, led to a gradual disintegration of the empire's structure and influence. The fall of the Western Roman Empire marked the beginning of an era of significant transformation. As the influence of Rome waned, Europe entered a period often referred to as the Dark Ages. This was a time of profound change, a time where the structures of society, culture, and politics were drastically reshaped. The old Roman order was replaced by a patchwork of smaller, independent kingdoms, each vying for power and influence. Culturally, the classical knowledge and advancements of the Romans were largely lost or forgotten. Art and literature took on a more religious tone as the church gained prominence. Latin, once the lingua franca of the empire, fragmented into various dialects, giving rise to the Romance languages we know today. Politically, the centralized Roman administration gave way to feudalism. Kings, lords, and vassals formed complex relationships of allegiance, protection, and service. This shift mirrored the chaos and uncertainty of the time, with power constantly shifting and alliances frequently changing. Yet amid this turmoil, there were also elements of continuity. Roman law and institutions continued to shape European society, albeit in modified forms. The Church in particular maintained a semblance of order, preserving some elements of Roman culture and providing a sense of stability. This was the dawn of an era that would be remembered as the Dark Ages, an era marked by flux and transformation, where the remnants of a fallen empire gave way to the seeds of a new world order. An era that, despite its name, was not entirely devoid of light. Life was far from easy during the Dark Ages. It was a time of survival, struggle, and transformation. Picture this: you're a commoner in the heart of Europe, living through an era marked by constant warfare, famine, disease, and a relentlessly harsh climate. A time when life expectancy was about 35 years, and childhood mortality was staggeringly high. The daily life of the average person during these times was dominated by hard, physical labor. The majority of the population lived in rural areas and worked the land. They toiled from sunrise to sunset, just to eke out a meager existence. Despite their laborious existence, these individuals were not free. They were bound to the land and were under the control of feudal lords who could command their services at any time. Religion played a central role in the everyday life of people in the Dark Ages. The Catholic Church was the only universal European institution, and it provided a sense of stability and order in a world that often seemed chaotic and dangerous. It was also a source of comfort and hope, offering the promise of salvation in the afterlife for a life of suffering on earth. As for political structures, the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century gave rise to a new system known as feudalism. Under this system, power was decentralized. Kings and queens had limited control, while local lords and knights held real power. They protected their lands and the people living on them in exchange for service and loyalty. However, this period wasn't just about struggle and survival. It was also a time of profound transformation. The seeds of change were being sown. New ideas and technologies were emerging, and society was slowly evolving. The stirrings of what would become the Renaissance were starting to take root. The Dark Ages were indeed dark for the common people, but they also sowed the seeds for many significant changes. It was a time when humanity was tested to its limits, but it was also a period that laid the groundwork for the world as we know it today. The Dark Ages were not just about struggle and survival. they also held many dark truths. Dive deeper into this era, and we unearth stories of major conflicts and wars that scar the annals of history. The Dark Ages were a time of power struggle, as kingdoms vied for dominance, often through brutal and bloody battles. These were not just fights for land or wealth, but also for prestige and power. The battles were fierce, the losses immense, and the fallout catastrophic. Religious wars added another dimension to the conflicts. The rise of Christianity and Islam led to spiritual battles that were as intense as any physical war. The Crusades, the holy wars of Christians against Muslims, were marked by an unprecedented level of violence and bloodshed. It was a time when faith was wielded as a weapon and holy lands were soaked in the blood of believers. But the dark truths of the Dark Ages extend beyond the battlefield. This era was also the breeding ground for one of humanity's most deadly enemies: disease. The plague, also known as the Black Death, swept across continents, leaving devastation in its wake. With 1/3 of Europe's population succumbing to this deadly disease, it was a period marked by fear, loss, and overwhelming despair. The spread of diseases like the plague was facilitated by the lack of sanitation and the poor understanding of disease transmission. The grim living conditions and the absence of effective medical treatments made survival a game of chance. The Dark Ages, therefore, were not just about the struggle for survival against the harsh elements. They were about surviving wars, religious fanaticism, and deadly diseases. These dark truths, hidden beneath the veneer of historical grandeur, reveal a time that was as challenging as it was transformative. These dark truths shaped the course of history and left an indelible mark on humanity. Despite the darkness, there was also light. The Dark Ages were not devoid of progress and innovation. Indeed, it is an era often misconstrued as a time of stagnation and decline, yet it was anything but. Amidst the chaos, the human spirit persevered, sparking advancements that would shape the course of history. Let's delve into the realm of art first. Where the Roman Empire left a legacy of grandeur and realism, the Dark Ages birthed a new aesthetic. Artists began to embrace abstraction and symbolism, birthing a unique style that would later evolve into the iconic Byzantine and Gothic art. These styles, rich in symbolism and spiritual significance, were reflections of the era's deep religious fervor. Turning to literature, this period saw the rise of vernacular languages, a departure from the Latin-dominated literary world of the Romans. This shift brought literature to the masses, making it more accessible and democratic. From Beowulf, the heroic epic of the Anglo-Saxons, to the lyrical verses of the troubadours, the Dark Ages gave us a trove of literary treasures that continue to captivate us today. And what of science? It's easy to assume that scientific progress stalled during this time, yet it was during the Dark Ages that the seeds of the scientific revolution were sown. Arab scholars preserved and built upon Greek and Roman knowledge, making significant strides in fields like medicine, astronomy, and mathematics. Their works, later translated into Latin, would serve as the foundation for Western scientific thought. Innovation wasn't confined to the scientific realm. The Dark Ages also witnessed the birth of the university, an institution that transformed education, fostering intellectual exchange, and nurturing the great minds that would later usher in the Renaissance. So, while it's true that the Dark Ages were a time of turmoil and uncertainty, it was also a period of resilience and creativity. These were the sparks that ignited the human spirit, the catalysts for progress and change. These were the rays of light that eventually led to the dawn of the Renaissance. The Dark Ages, a time of turmoil and transformation, left a significant impact on the course of history. A period spanning 5 centuries, it bore witness to a world in flux, caught between the collapse of the Roman Empire and the dawn of the Renaissance. It was a time that saw the rise of feudalism, the spread of Christianity, and the birth of nations as we know them today. We've journeyed through the lives of peasants and lords, experiencing the harsh realities and surprising resilience of those who lived through this era. We've unveiled dark truths, revealing a world marked by warfare, disease, and a struggle for survival. Yet even in the face of such hardships, we've seen glimmers of progress, of humanity's indomitable spirit shining through the gloom. We've explored the profound cultural and intellectual shifts of the period, from the monastic scribes preserving ancient knowledge to the first stirrings of the scientific revolution. We've seen how, despite its name, the Dark Ages were far from a time of total darkness. Instead, they were a complex and fascinating period of transformation, filled with both challenges and opportunities. So, as we step back from this exploration, we're left with a richer understanding of a time that was a crucible for the world we live in today. And this, dear viewers, was the Dark Ages, a time that was indeed dark, but not without its own unique light.